Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. I got a little extra pep in my step here because I took a month down doing the Hall of Fame month. I ran old conversations with this guy's brother and then watched his brother go into the Hall of Fame. My one-time roommate on Kane Street and a guy I've shared a lot of photos with over the last couple of weeks because back when we were younger, we hung out with Van Halen and Bon Jovi and did all that stuff, and now he gets to go up to Cooperstown and see his brother's name up on the wall. I had wondered what the experience would be like. Mark Mussina, you wrote a piece in the aftermath that you shared on your Facebook and out on your social media, and I read it. I was in Ocean City. I read that piece in Ocean City before I left, actually, because you kind of wrote it kind of quickly in the aftermath of being up there. It was all kind of fresh. And I got myself off the beach, peeled myself off to go back. If I had a vote for the Hall of Fame, which I probably would have had, and Angelo's not throwing me out in 2000, I would have voted for your brother. I would have voted for Kurt Schilling and rescinded that after he wrote all sorts of racist stuff on my Facebook page last week, and I threw him off. But your brother, I celebrate your brother as though it's my brother. Your brother was the closest guy I had to being someone that would go to the Hall of Fame. I saw you sitting there. I saw the emotions in check. I read your whole thing, but Has it sunk in yet? I mean, was it surreal or is it real now?
It's a good question. It's when you see the names and you know what the Hall of Fame. It's weird for me to think that my brother's there. I understand that his numbers are there, and when you just look at on a piece of paper 270 wins and 5 All-Star games and 7 Gold Gloves and the winning percentage and the strikeouts and all those things. I get that they belong there. It's just weird that it's my brother. As much as, it became normal for me to watch him, like people wanted to watch Major League Baseball and my brother was on SportsCenter, and that just became a part of everyday life. But when you see all the guys that are there, and you go through the hall and you see the plaques, you understand what it's all about.
And a lot of them have a brother like you or a sister like you or dad and mom. That's part of all of it that goes unspoken, that when your brother's in a World Series, you're sitting there with, Andy Pettit's family. Everybody's in it together. There's a part of that. But the Hall of Fame, you kind of arrive and you realize a lot of these guys have been coming here for 30, 40 years. You see the elder statesmen there. Some of the older folks can't make it there anymore. But is this going to be something your brother's going to get in the car and drive up there every that's all I can think about. You writing about it and all that, I'm thinking, you know what, it's nice, it's romantic, it's cool. But the really cool part is you get to go back every year if you want and be a participant in it in that way and in a different way, I feel that way because my last name's Aparicio, and when I go there, I've been looking at my cousin's plaque on the wall every time I've ever gone,
So, I think, well, first of all, I'll say I was surprised by how many old guys did come back. And, to see Griffey Jr. and Frank Thomas and, Johnny Bench and Ricky Henderson and all those guys, I was surprised. I'm sure there's an aspect where the Hall of Fame encourages it because, if these guys, if it's not an event, then they're kind of like promoting themselves. If you want people to know you're a Hall of Famer, then you've got to make the Hall of Fame a big event. I would assume because of our proximity, it's less than a 4-hour drive, and the hotel where they stay is right on a golf course, and they all go out and play golf. So I would suspect that for the most part,
if you want to play golf with Johnny Bench, you better get your ass to Cooperstown, right?
You can go, yes. And I think most of them do. I know Palmer didn't come, and
he had a family situation, yeah.
Yes, and he called Mike a couple days beforehand. He's like, hey, I'm sorry, but I can't make it. But I think he said, too, a lot of the guys that said they were going to come, somebody hurt their back, that they're, because these guys they're obviously getting older, that there were health issues. I think Robin Yount was one of them.
Let's be honest, dude. I'm not being rude or whatever, but what does your brother have that's better to do the third weekend of July, most of the rest of his life, than go up and celebrate the awesomeness that is all of it? You know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I know your brother's more introverted. I mean, he's not. You're talking to me now, and he's not. I mean, I get it that he doesn't really seek any of that, and it really makes him uncomfortable. I completely understand that. Even coming on the radio with me would make him uncomfortable, and therefore I don't want him to come on. If he's uncomfortable, he shouldn't do it because he didn't do a lot of it. He didn't do much of any of it, quite frankly. So there is a part of it where I know him that well to know he never wanted any of this. But you also know that, like, it's the neatest thing ever, and part of it is he's on the rope and he should be pulling it a little bit, right? Like, and did he have fun? Was it fun for him? I mean, I know it was joyous for you, but was it fun for him?
I mean, they're busy. The guys that get in are busy. Like, he was scheduled all the time, and that's the one thing I say when people say, "Oh, it was fun." It was not like a party for me.
Wow. Okay. All right.
We were always like, and with your kids, it was like, all right, here's where we need to be next. This is what you need to wear.
It's an obligation. It really is becomes obligatory. From the minute you show up, you're all in on being a Hall of Famer for a couple days, and the family is all in on whatever place they send you, whatever meal they're.
Yeah, and it's just the pressure of not screwing up. Like, and you know, with you know, being a divorced dad, like I was the one, like I was mom running around. Do you know what you're going to wear tonight? Is it clean? Do you know where it is? Does it need iron? Do you have your tickets? Do you know where everything is? So there was that, and yeah, for him, he just kind of bounced and bounced. I think next year it's a lot more.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, it's golf next year.
Enjoy
right?
it more. Yeah, he'll be able to play twice as opposed to playing once and being like, hey, you got to be done by this time because you got somewhere to be.
Right. Well, Mark Mussina is here. His brother's a Hall of Famer. By the way, I want to thank your brother, as well as Ed Reed, for inspiring me, right? Like, I took the month off. I went back and found all of my archive conversations with everyone who's a Hall of Famer, literally. You know, I had my personal Hall of Fame the first 10 days. Then I did a week of baseball Hall of Famers, a week of rock and roll Hall of Famers, and a week of football Hall of Famers. And it inspired me to listen to me talk to your brother and how unbelievably honest he was in 2000 about his situation and what would become of his life and where he would go and what was important to him. And having these conversations with all of them, it's kind of like moved me on to what the next thing is. But it hasn't taken long, right? Like, your brother going in reminds all of us of how effed up this franchise is. And now the Orioles are allegedly for sale. And I'm going to bring that to your desk here, because, you know, you're the deep thinker on all of this stuff, and you remember coming down here when your brother was drafted into it and you were a kid, and you would see 3.6 million people in this city and what it looked like, and you know what it used to be, and you know what it is, and you lived here for a long time. Just some thoughts on the Baltimore Orioles as it sits in 2019, because I'm probably too close to it. It's right out my window, right? For you, you dive into New York, you dive into baseball, you watch baseball still as a fan, you see what the Nationals have become, you understand what Baltimore used to be. I'm worried about all of it, dude, and I should be. I'm Baltimore positive, but I know what the Orioles used to represent for our city, and they don't represent that anymore. And I do wonder deep down whether they ever will again. But I tell you what, if a rich guy comes in and bets $1.5 billion on it, all of a sudden that guy then really needs to make it work. And for that, I love all of that, right?
Well, yes. I mean, I think the positive aspect of it would be, you know, obviously an ownership change. And, you know, you can, as you dress up all of it, you can spin everything however you want with, you know, attendance and winning and I still firmly believe that in Baltimore, if you put a competitive product on, people will come. And you can't make the argument that it's too hard to win in the American League East as a small market team because Tampa's doing it. And Tampa did it last year. Like, this is no fluke. Tampa won 92 games last year or something. They didn't make the playoffs, but they were a 90-win team. So you can dress up everything else you want about what's happening in Washington and the state of baseball and all those things, but you can't do it while the team is the worst team in baseball, or in this year, the second worst team in baseball. Like, if they were winning, in Tampa, I think you can say that this ain't working. And if Tampa went to Nashville, I don't think anyone questions it. But in Baltimore, you can't say, well, nobody's coming to watch this team. Oh, by the way, they lost 115 games last year. And this year they're going to lose 100 plus. And it's so.
Well, I don't think it's perceived outside of here by everyone as, oh, we can just go in and fix it. I mean, we got the Orange Con man, right? Out on Twitter, calling our place rat infested and no human would want to live here. That perception sticks out on the farm in Mid-Toursville. That Baltimore is this burning down, horrific place. By the way, I was in Camden, New Jersey last week. I know what that looks like. That's not Baltimore. I walk through Baltimore every day of my life. Do we need TLC? Yeah, we need all of that. But there is this perception that Baltimore is forever broken, which is a poor perception as well. But I do look at it and say, well, maybe Baltimore's time has come and gone if I'm buying a baseball team saying there's more hope elsewhere for that franchise. That would be the perception that would worry me, Moose. And more than that, no matter what happens, at some point people need to care. At some point, people need to come back. At some point, businesses need to buy in. And when that doesn't happen, then we have what Montreal was and what Tampa is, which is a dumpster fire that could be moved and no one would care. But I would say in Baltimore, if we're going to give the new owner of the Orioles some $400 million grant of land instead of taking care of kids in West Baltimore or education or crime or poverty or those things, boy, that's a question we didn't ask 30 years ago that we're going to have to ask this time around after the riots, right? We're going to have to ask, are we a two-sport town? Can we support it? We're not even supporting the Ravens the way that we used to, So there's all of that because we're a unique community here, in that way. And being boxed in that are we a two-sport town, that's going to be put to the test over the next 10 years, no matter who owns these teams, I think,
Yeah, and I would agree with that. But I think one to look at, and I don't know the attendance figures, but you take a team like Kansas City, who was dreadful for years. Then they got really, really good. They made a World Series. They won a World Series. Now they're dreadful again. And it would be interesting to watch what their attendance did while you were good. I mean, at any sport, you go to Duke basketball, you can't get a ticket. You go to Duke football, they'll give you a ticket. It's, and in any sport almost across the globe, if you win, people will come. So, it's not as easy as it used to be in Camden Yards, where you'd sell 3 million tickets anyway just because it was Camden Yards. Now that the buying public is saying, listen, you got to give me a reason to want to come to the ballpark, and it's not to see the other team hit home runs. So they've put a product on the field that is really, really hard to support. And they say, well, stick with us while we rebuild. But the way society is now, they say, well, you rebuild and then we'll come back.
Let me throw the old white guy thing in here because you and I are now officially old white guys, right? I've gone to a lot of concerts this summer, just by hook or crook by chance, and I'm,
to see a bunch of other old white guys.
No doubt. I mean, listen. I mean, you and I go to a lot of concerts together. It's sort of one of the bonds we have in our relationship. Whether you're on a farm somewhere at Montage Mountain and wherever seeing Motley Crue or whatever, I see what you're doing and I see what I'm doing, and I've gone to a lot of concerts this summer. I've seen the Stones, I've seen Barbra Streisand, I've seen Hootie and the Blowfish a couple times, I've seen the Goo Goo Dolls and Train, I've seen Heart, I've seen Duran Jones. I've been places and see that. People love going to concerts, right? And the thing I've noticed about concerts, and I know we've all noticed this, right? It's really, really expensive all of a sudden. And I mean all of a sudden. Like, when I looked up and saw people are paying $250 to get into the Shed, anywhere in the Shed, to see Hart and Joan Jett, I'm thinking to myself, Hart and Joan Jett is not a $500 night. But I also look at an Oriole game and say, that's not a $100 night for me either, at any cost, at any level. But people are willing to go do the $39 tickets on the lawn or whatever. But they're also willing to fill up the pavilion at Merriweather for Hootie at $1.25, or Hart at $250, or the Stones at $300 at the stadiums. I mean, Billy Joel, 37,000 people paying a minimum of $180 to walk in and see Billy Joel from Section 336 up on the road. And people are doing it. People will pay this premium thing, and really, this is the psychology. It's the feeling, right? It's that feeling of singing Piano Man, or that feeling of hearing Barracuda, or hearing Ann Wilson sing Stairway to Heaven, or whatever that feeling of Hootie and the Blowfish singing Hold My Hand, right? We want that feeling and that communal thing, right? We used to get that through sports, man. It used to be my team, my town. Your Yankees, F you, Mussina. F Mike Mussina forever. He signed with the Yankees because they're the Yankees, or the Red Sox, or the Steelers, or all of that, right? We don't have, because I'm Baltimore, right? Baltimore is my town, right? boy, Moose, a little bit of that's gone, and I've seen the money. That's all gone from the baseball thing, right? But that money now is showing up at a Steve Miller concert with $14 beers. People pay $14 for beer and like get free. I mean, like it's crazy, right? Like the money that I see being spilled at concerts for VIP experiences, and I want to meet Billy Idol and take a picture or whatever. But, man, that's not happening for baseball in my town at all, and every kid's got a lacrosse stick. So I think for the new owner here, there is this thing where people have gotten out of the habit of doing it, and when they do it, does it make them feel better than Hootie and the Blowfish? Because a $14 beer at Hootie and the Blowfish feels pretty good. A $14 beer when you're losing 100 games doesn't feel like I even want to show up. And they've got a lot of things to fight against here, trying to bring baseball back, right? Even with a winning team, there really is a brand issue here for baseball and what a $14 beer represents, you know?
See, to that I would disagree because, when you're losing 100 games, a $2 beer isn't good. Like, it's just, that's not what it is. I think when you mentioned the Billy Joel thing and, when you go when the Ravens are in the playoffs in the Super Bowl, I think a lot of it is, I think some of it is the feeling, and I think a lot of it is that people don't want to miss out. And that's why there are millions of people that watch the Super Bowl that don't really care. But they do it because everybody else is doing it, and they don't want to miss out. Look at what the Caps – I mean, Baltimore is not a Caps hockey town. But when they won, everybody was a Caps fan. And I think in that region, the Capitals winning the Cup shows what if you win, and it wasn't, I mean, obviously now we know that they won, but when they were riding this wave of, I saw it on Facebook every day, all caps, because it was fun to be a part of, and it was water cooler conversation.
But then what happens the next day? Do you go to a Caps game? I mean, that's the issue for, like, the Orioles won here for 4 or 5 years, right? Did they build anything? Did they get new sponsors? Did they get new season tickets? They gave all these orange shirts out, right? Everybody's got a buckled up shirt, right? Now they're sitting in the Goodwill stores. I mean, there has to come a point where you really do come for more than a Hawaiian bobblehead. You know what I mean? That their marketing this summer is Christmas in July in the outfield, blowing bubbles and making it snow out in the park. I mean, it's bizarre,
dude. Nothing to market. They can't.
Game of Thrones and Star Wars. I mean, I know Alan McCallum likes it, but I mean, like, there has to come a point where, like, I care who's in the bullpen and I care about the team and I'm vested in the game and the situation. I mean, dude, you go to baseball games all the time. You're the ultimate nerd, dude, right? Like, keeping score and knowing things. Like, that's your life. How many people around you are watching a game, Moose?
Well, but because it's lost the urgency. And when you get, when you talk, because I got a good friend who's an Oakland A's fan, and he knows every day because the Oakland A's are in a playoff race. Like, you could go on vacation for a week and come back and say, well, how'd the Orioles do? And it doesn't matter. But for the teams that matter, and that's the way, see, what in Baltimore, what people have been spoiled with most of the time, that's the way the NFL is in week 14, 15, 16, and 17 in places where they're out of it. Like, it's must-see TV in September, and then it's must-see TV in October, and in December, you might go Christmas shopping because, well, the team's 4-9, so who cares? And that's where the Orioles have just been who cares now for however many straight years. And if they get back into it, I mean, you look at what happened in Cleveland, where Cleveland was they made a movie about it because they were a joke. But now, Cleveland got really good and lost in the World Series, and then they got bad, and then they were good again, and then they lost in the World Series, and here they are, and people in Cleveland care, and people in Minnesota care, because the Twins are good all of a sudden. But that is the equation, not just in baseball, but in every sport. You have to be good. You can't be the worst team in the league and expect people to come. It doesn't happen anywhere, and it's not going to happen in Baltimore.
Well, the tanking part of this is also Baltimore's not the only place this is going on, and tanking is now sort of a franchise responsibility, right? Like, it's what you have to do. It's how you play the poker hand, except 10 or 12 teams are doing it right now, and it's horrific, and it really lacks integrity, right? I mean, we go back to Bowie Kuhn and the integrity of the game, right?
Define tank. I get the NBA tanking because they want to be in the lottery, and one guy in the NBA can change your stars. I get that. But I don't see, I don't understand why would you say the Orioles are tanking?
Were they trying to win this year? Were they trying to put together a competitive club? No, they were not, so they're tanking. They were not trying to win. It's easy to lose when you're not trying to win.
It's not like they traded Mancini for nobody. It's not like they're
No. I mean, look, the day Elias took over, I mean, it's really obvious that John and Lewis aren't all that interested in the team, right? The team's for sale. So, I think they're just letting the Yale genius come in and do whatever they want. I mean, look, Moose, they came in here and they started, hanging up cameras and stuff in places and measuring stuff around here. And, they brought a whole new day. So for the baseball operation, I got nothing to say about that other than I'm assuming it's getting better. Baseball America tells me it's getting better. We're seeing some statistical things happen at the lower levels with some players that are getting better. But at the major league level, for what you're paying for as a customer in time, money, whatever, I don't watch it. I mean, why would I?
I agree. Well, the reason you'd watch
I'm at the Joan Jett concert this summer, spending money and buying $14 beers,
I mean, that's the thing that makes the Orioles. The thing that makes the Orioles watchable this year is because of the absurdity of the home runs allowed. It's almost like you turn it on to say they can't give up 5 home runs again tonight. Oh, my God, yes, they did. I mean, that's what it's – but, yeah, the product isn't – but there's no – they can't go out and sign big free agents. Bryce Harper wasn't coming here. Mike Trout wasn't.
Oh, I understand all of that, but what does that mean for the? I mean, that's like you saying, Moose, you got a crab house, Moose's Crab House. Well, we didn't have crabs tonight. Well, then I can't order them. You know what I mean? I get it. I mean, but it's also I don't want to eat in your restaurant, though. You know what I mean? If you're not making the food the way I want it made, I'm just not going to come to the restaurant. So there is that going on, and they are in an environment. And this really does go back full circle, dude, to the ownership, right? To where they are and what they're doing. They're making so much money that they don't have to try hard. And that's the difference in baseball, that when you and I were kids in the 70s, if you tanked, you didn't make it. In 1978, if you were the Cleveland Indians, you were trying to win, and you couldn't, and you stunk, and your owners were losing money because there weren't big sponsorships. There weren't any of that. That's how all the strike stuff happened in 81. Now we just know how much money these guys are making. I mean, the owners are making so much money that throwing $4 million at the next Kevin Millwood or Doug Drabeck or whatever washed-up guy, I mean, you're better off dealing Cashner out and just cutting your losses. That being said, the Chris Davis thing is its own little sideshow now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I listen, I totally understand where the Orioles are with Chris Davis. And when you look back at his numbers in 12 and in 14, they were off the charts good. And this is he has taken a cataclysmic drop that you probably can't. The only place I can see it is in golf, where you look at where David Duval went from being the number one guy in the world who won the British Open to a guy who can't shoot 90. His is you can't find a baseball unless you want to take a pitcher like Rick Ankiel, who stopped throwing the ball over the plate. But Rick Ankiel was never as good of a pitcher as Chris Davis was as a hitter. So I get it, but people just say for the Orioles, just let him go. What the Orioles are hoping for every year is that he finds lightning in a bottle enough that some team in a pennant race is desperate enough that says, let's sign this guy and we'll pay 10%.
Well, you know what? Maybe the thing would be Josh Hamilton, right? Who obviously had a whole bunch of issues, but went away for a little while and came back. Mark McGwire went away for a little while. Now we all know what Mark McGwire did to come back. But there are a couple of players in the history of baseball who have moved out of the valley, maybe not to the mountain, but at least onto a cliff somewhere. I don't know where we are, dude. We're 1,000 at bats into a 178 hitter, right? I mean, literally.
Well, and I hear people say just release him, but if I'm the organization, I don't release him either, and here's why. He's not costing you a pennant right now. It's not like, because we played Chris Davis, we've lost 3 more games. Who cares? It's going to be a triple-digit number anyway. So what's it matter? And if you release him, you have to pay him. So if you keep playing him enough, there's always that hope that he finds it and he gets hot, and someone else is willing to, instead of you eating all of his contract, you only eat 85% of his contract.
But then you send him up to the plate 400 times and embarrass yourself for giving him the at-bats to some degree.
Well, and there is that. And there comes a level where you probably have to, especially there comes a level where if there's somebody behind him that you're taking at-bats from, but there aren't enough super prospects that are big league ready in this organization to take the at-bats from. So, I mean, I understand not wanting to, because people say, well, just cut ties with them. And the other thing, especially when you're the Orioles, one of the reasons that they're afraid to get rid of Chris Davis is Jake Arrieta. And there's always that aspect. He's going to show up somewhere else and hit 35 bombs again, and we're going to say, where the hell were you?
And we're paying him.
Yes, and we're paying him to hit home runs against us, and he couldn't hit the ball in the infield. He couldn't even make contact for us, and there's that, because he's not that old yet. It's
mental,
David
it's
Duvall
not physical, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes, David Duvall is the name that comes up to me, and, you know, I understand. I think the Orioles have played it fine so far. I have no issues with how they played it. But you're right. They can't do this the entire 7 years of the contract. There is a point where they have to cut me.
Mark Mussina has been my friend for going on 30 years. His brother's in the Hall of Fame, if you haven't heard. And tell me what you're doing. You do some writing and stuff like that. You wrote a piece, but you coach basketball with your brother, right? Pretty much, right?
Well, no, I stopped doing that because my oldest is a senior in high school this year, or she will be in a week. And my next oldest, my two daughters, one's going to be a senior, one's going to be a sophomore. So 2 years ago, I coached with Mike for 3 years, and 2 years ago, I said, listen, I want to be home more, and also my son was going into 6th grade, and there was a Y League team, and I'd rather coach him, and you know, I said, you know, I'm 47, and I said to myself, in 2 years, my oldest daughter is going to be off in college, and in 4 years, they're both going to be off in college. And when I get to that point,
your coaching career will come back.
Coach,
Yes,
yeah. And so right now, I've stepped away from it, and I'm home more, and I'm working on other business projects, and I'm getting some writing done, and so like I write some stuff. I write articles and stuff. I've written about Mike and the whole Hall of Fame thing, but I mostly try to write screenplays, and I'm halfway into like 4 of them, and I've got some that are out there that I'm pitching around, and so we're trying.
Well, look, man, if I drive to Buffalo in December instead of going to Tokyo to see you two, if I come through Montoursville, what I want to do is just sit out on the porch with you and watch lightning bugs or count stars, something like that, just for a couple of hours. Just live the Montoursville lifestyle, just passing through and see what's going on. Hey, Little League, they're playing like ball games. What's going on in the Little League Museum? That's all like a big deal where you are, right?
Starts tomorrow. The parade's tonight. It starts tomorrow. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it is. And what's neat about Little League, but I want to make this point before I forget it. If you come up here and we're sitting on a porch in December, there are no lightning bugs.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
They are frozen.
All right, that's a good point. I want to come up this summer, though, and do that.
One of the neat things about Little League, and just the way it worked out, and it's dumb luck for them, is they have no natural predators in the sports world. For this 10 days, there's no Big League Baseball.
You mean the Ravens preseason game won't get in the way?
NFL preseason doesn't matter. College football hasn't kicked in. Major League Baseball is kind of in the dog days that it's just, and for America, it's why ESPN, it's so big on ESPN, because there's no natural enemies. So Little League Baseball is lucky in that aspect. But I'm telling you, you talk about the changing face of professional sports. Little League Baseball is, and all youth sports are struggling because of travel teams and travel tournaments. And what it used to be where kids signed up, played their local Little League, played on their all-star team, and, they played till they were done. Now you've got kids who they sign up for their local Little League, but they miss half the games because they're on a travel team. And they're down, here playing 5 times. Or, they've got guaranteed 4 games in this weekend, and they can get a trophy, and they can do. So it is it's a different world, and a lot of the youth organizations are struggling with it. And Just the AYSOs of the world and the Little Leagues of the world, and they are really, really in it's a new era with that they have to compete with kids that are now not signing up for their local Little Leagues. They sign up on travel teams, and they do fundraisers, and instead of playing 2 games a week with your buddies, they play 5 games every other weekend, and one's at the beach, and one's in New Jersey, and one's here, and one's there. So it's tough, but as of right now, for the next 10 days, Little League baseball will be it'll be more on ESPN than anything else.
Can I get any parking in Montoursville this week or no? I have to park in Montoursville to get to Williamsport, right?
It's funny. It's still free parking, and I've said this every year. Like, all they got to do is charge $1, and it's free parking unless you want to park in somebody's yard, and then they'll charge you like 10. But no, it's cool. It's really and the funny thing is, depending on what day and when you go over, it'll be really accessible. If Australia is playing Europe, you can get in, you can walk right around, you can sit in the front row, and it's essentially free. But when you get to next weekend, when it's both of the weekends will be packed, and when you get to Championship Sunday, like, you can't get a ticket here.
Well, I'm hoping to see you somewhere at a rock show in Hershey or further on up the line. It's always great to visit with you. Congrats to you, your family, your brother. It was a wonderful thing to watch. It got me off the beach for a couple hours down in Ocean City. And we tip our caps to all the Hall of Famers. And one day I'll make my ride back up to Cooperstown. But
hey, at your age, you need to get off the beach, buddy. You're not as young as you used to be. I hope that sunblock is lathered on thick.
Always 30, brother. Always 30. Mark Mussina here joining us from the farm in Montoursville, Pennsylvania. Take care, Moose.
Hey, it's always a pleasure, man.
You got it. Mark Mussina, my lifer pal, and I didn't even beat him up at the Cowboys. I didn't even talk any football. It's fine. Talk football with him in football season. Right now, it's Little League season. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I am on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram discussing all aspects of the Orioles being up for sale. Also, talking Baltimore positive as well. We're going to be at Fadley's, at Jennings, also out at State Fair. We got Ben Carden joining us, Ben Jealous. Lots of stuff happening later on in the month. Make sure you check that out at Baltimore Positive, including our U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen this week on Baltimore Positive. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.